can't stop storms in our life. We can't go outside and say, storm, stop. But he's just saying that I know the storm exists, but I also know that the storm shall pass.
Hey there, welcome to another edition of Conversations from Studio 5. I'm your host, Ephraim Graham, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to your destination for the latest from the world of lifestyle and entertainment, connecting it to popular culture and faith. Now, this week we're sitting down with motivational speaker Trent Shelton. He went from athlete to someone who is inspiring millions with his words. Some of his mantras include, "It all starts with you," "Never settle," and "Don't die with your dreams." He was an athlete, but now a motivational speaker reaching millions online. Let's sit down with Trent. And joining us now is athlete, author, and motivational speaker Trent Shelton. So good to have you. Let me begin by saying this. My introduction to Trent came in reading your book, The Greatest You. For people who may not know who you are and be seeing you for the first time, introduce yourself, if you don't mind, comparing who you are in comparison to the dream you had for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Simply put, I'm just a guy that wants to help lives as best as I can as I help my own. Whether that's in a form of content online, writing books, whether it's a form of coaching. I'm just a guy who wants to help better people's lives. And, I never saw myself doing what I'm doing now. Introvert by nature, but, some hard times and some realizations of life led me to my purpose. And my dream was a football player. So that's what I did for probably about 30 years of my life was play football professionally, college. And it just didn't work out the way I thought it would, but it led me to what I'm doing today.
For people hearing that, possibly looking at a life that's not the life that they dream for themselves, what would you say?
Yeah, sometimes, what God has called you to do is better than the life that you want to live. I always say, it's hard to accept, but sometimes you have to let go of your dreams so you can walk into your purpose. And so when you can just surrender fully and say, man, whatever is coming in my path, whatever losses I might have, it's actually working out for my good. It's preparing me and positioning me for what God has for me. And so even to this day, when things don't go my way, I'm still thanking God. I'm still praising God because I know that it's leading me to a place where my life can be used most efficiently.
How easy is it or how hard is it to get to that place?
It's very tough. I mean, it takes faith. And, faith is obviously being able to trust what you don't see. Being able to trust is basically saying, what, I believe a door is going to open for my life that doesn't even exist yet. But I think when you look back, at least for myself in my past, and I realized how many doors open that didn't exist, how many relationships I end up meeting people and had business, friendships. And obviously now with my marriage, so many things that I didn't plan out ended up working best for my life. So I always look back to gain confidence. And I always say, man, if God had me then, he has me now, and he'll have me in the future.
How has God surprised you most in the life you're leading right now?
Oh, man. I would have to say what I'm doing right now. Like I said earlier, I'm an introvert. Like you ask my father, I have two older brothers, so 3 boys, and he would pick me last to be a speaker. I've always been the kid that's, wasn't shy, but just quiet and stayed to myself. And over my life, seeds were planted. And that now as I look back, I'm like, oh man, these were actually seeds and God trying to get my attention that there was something bigger for my life and walking into this. And so me being a speaker, me being a face to help people mentally and things like that is definitely still a surprise to me. And I pinch myself every single day.
Take me back to the first big platform and stage that you found yourself on. What happened? How'd you get there?
Yeah, it was at Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, Dr. Tony Evans, which is incredible pastor. And I got invited there by his son, Jonathan. And I was still playing football. I was still trying to find my way. And me having conversations with him, Jonathan, he's just like, man, you have something inside of you that you don't even see in yourself. And at that moment, I didn't know what that meant. And I still remember like it was yesterday. It was probably like a 10-minute speech in front of probably seemed like 1 million kids, probably a few thousand kids. And I prepared the whole night before. And as soon as I stepped on that stage, my mind went blank. I had stage fright. In that moment, I said, God used me. And I just found the confidence in the midst of clarity. I found the strength in the midst of me being nervous. And I knew at that moment that this is what I was supposed to do in my life, even though there was no sign that was like, this is what you're supposed to do. But I knew that it was something that I needed to pursue. And I let go of football and I walked into what I do today.
So was there a feeling of comfort? What was
Okay.
it that happened?
That's it. The best way I can put it, it was a feeling of peace
Mm.
in the most chaotic situation in my life, in the midst of nervousness. I still had that peace that surpasses all understanding. I just knew in my soul that this is it. And I called my mother, and my mother, gave me that confirmation. She said, "Baby, that's the Lord using you." And it was like that was what I needed from my mom and my father to say, "Hey, go ahead down this path, and God's going to take care of you." And He did.
Mm. One of the things we hear from you is rehab time. What is that?
Yeah, so rehab time, it's ironic because I just tore my Achilles. So I'm actually in rehab right now as we speak.
Again?
Yeah, so
No.
yeah, so it's tough right now, man. But when I started rehab time, it did come from a place of me playing sports. And I understood rehab is a very tough process. But rehab is also a beautiful process if you're able to have patience through the process. So in sports, a lot of people try to come back quicker than what they're supposed to come back and end up getting hurt. So it teaches you how to have patience. And if you do rehab right, oftentimes you come back stronger than you were before you got hurt. So rehab to me means putting the strength into a weakness. And that's from the physical side, but also the spiritual side, the emotional side. So when I said rehab time for me, it meant holistically, mind, body, and soul, putting the strength into weaknesses in my life so I can come back stronger.
That said, what sets you apart from other motivational speakers out there? What do you think is different about what you're sharing versus others?
I don't know. I feel like this. I feel like we all have a gift. My grandmother told me this a long time ago. We're all called to reach certain people. So other speakers are going to connect with people that I can't connect with. And the only thing I can say is that I'm me. And I think what everybody watching this is God uniquely designed you. And when you walk into who you are, not who the world wants you to be, not who your friends want you to be, not who social media is convincing you to be. When you truly own yourself and realize that you're unique and your life has been designed for you, tailor-made, I think that's the thing that separates me as far as, being able to be confident in who I am in myself and my message.
What are you hearing from people and your followers? I'm looking at some of your videos with millions upon millions of views. What are people saying to you?
Well, I'll give you two ways. Well, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of mental health things. I think that's the big thing of trying to weather this storm of life, when circumstances aren't right, or, when things like 2020 hit you. So a lot of people are trying to weather that storm, and it's very hard. And then, people are getting from me, protect your peace. It's something that I've been saying for years. And more than ever, I'm seeing a lot of people grab onto that and say, man, I just want to protect my peace. And peace is this for me, and I tell people all the time, peace doesn't mean that the storm doesn't exist, right? We can't stop storms in our life. We can't go outside and say, storm, stop. But peace is saying that I know the storm exists, but also know that the storm shall pass.
I love it. You motivate the masses and encourage us. Where does Trent go for the encouragement?
Yeah, man. I go to my surroundings. What I mean by that, I'm blessed to have great people around me, my family, friends. I go online. I'm a sponge of life, as I like to say. I don't need to necessarily have some big mentor, which I have a lot of mentors in my life, but I learn from everybody. I learn from the guy cutting my grass. I learn from, a teacher. I learn from just anybody in life. So I'm always looking out, trying to absorb knowledge from everybody, because I think the greatest life teacher is not your own experiences all the time, but also using other people's experiences to educate your life.
How do you feel about the game today? You miss it?
I do miss it at times. It's probably why I end up hurting myself trying to live some glory days playing basketball with my nephew. But I'm able to still stay around it. I'm able to coach my son and his teammates, and I still stay around the game, and it gives me what I need to be satisfied. But I don't miss the heat in Texas. I don't miss the two-a-day practice, but I do miss the brotherhood and the competitiveness.
I like to ask people, if you could go back in time now that you know some of what you've gone through, what would you tell young Trent with all those football dreams and aspirations? What advice would you give that little boy?
Yeah, I would just tell him to keep falling in love with progression. I was telling him that no matter what happens in your life, just know that God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And that plan is not to harm you. That plan is to give you hope in the future. And so always just trust God's word and not your circumstances, and everything will be okay.
So you are a content creator. Where does this all come from? I mean, to be able to constantly share and teach and pour out, where does that come from?
Yeah, life. I mean, life is the greatest teacher. You know, sometimes it's coming from things I dealt with. Sometimes it's coming from things I'm dealing with, or it's just even coming from the lives around me. You know, I just look out, whether it be somebody in my house or a friend or online, you know, from comments. And so I'm just looking around and really trying to absorb life and what's going on. So life is the greatest, I feel like the greatest teacher that you ever could learn from.
I love it. What's next for you? I know you've got at least 2 books out. What's next?
Yeah, another book is on the way. I'm actually working on it right now. I wouldn't say the title, but it's probably premature, but that'll be out next year. And, you know, just to continue to live in my purpose. I know there's hearts out there that haven't heard the message, that need the message. So I'm just going to keep showing up every day and living this purpose the best way I can.
I love it. I'll give you the final word. If you could say something, since you do it all the time, what would you say to people watching to get them up and moving today?
Yeah, I would just tell them, you know, you only get one life, you know, at least here physically, you get one life and you never know when that expiration date is, you know. So I'm going to tell you right now, you're always in control of 2 things, what you give and what you accept. And at the end of the day, all that matters in life is, you know, love and memories, because that's the only things you have to hold on to. So make sure you give all the love you can, you walk in love, you give love, you be love, and also create memories with those that you love, because at some point in life, forever will end, and all you'll have to hold on to is some memories. So make sure you make the best out of the experiences that you have and the opportunity with life every single day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your obedience. We much appreciate the work that you're doing. God bless you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
It's rehab time. You can find more from Trent online. And as we've shared, he's got 2 books already available with a 3rd one soon to come. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Conversations from Studio 5. Hope you join me next week when we're sitting down with longtime Hootie and the Blowfish drummer, Jim Sonny Sonnefeld. For more information on our show, I hope you're checking out our Facebook page by searching Studio 5. You can also find us on Instagram at Studio 5 TV. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.